from the soil of Bihar, I say to the whole world, India will identify, track and punish every terrorist and their backer. We will pursue them to the ends of the earth. India's spirit will never be broken by terrorism.
On April 22, 2025, gunfire shattered the calm of Pahalgam, a tourist heaven in India's Jammu Kashmir, killing 26 innocent tourists. The assault wasn't just another act of terrorism. It was a line crossed, a message etched in blood. In its aftermath, a web of geopolitical deception began to unravel. And now, in the silence that follows the gunfire, another war has begun. A war of truth, of accountability, and of diplomatic reckoning. Because the fingers don't just point to Islamabad now, it points to Washington, D.C. as well. It's a scandal that's as explosive as it is buried. From a US-based Islamic charity under the scanner to aid money approved by Donald Trump. How did American money meant for counterterrorism end up in the pockets of Lashkar-e-Taiba? How did Hafiz Saeed, yes, the very man behind the 26/11 Mumbai carnage, end up in the financial ecosystem of Western aid? Was this a failure of oversight or a willful blindness? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. The India-Pakistan conflict has always simmered just below boiling point. But Pahalgam has changed everything. While New Delhi mourns, damning reports have now emerged about US aid under the Trump administration, funds that might have funneled into terrorist hands. Allegations of US aid money ending up with Hafiz Saeed's banned charity have jolted diplomatic circles. In a twist of staggering irony, funds meant for counterterrorism may have fueled it instead. So how could US taxpayer money find its way into the coffers of one of India's most wanted terrorists? The valley of Pahalgam, often described as paradise on earth, turned into a nightmare on the 22nd of April. Masked assailants armed with assault rifles and grenades ambushed a convoy of unarmed Hindu tourists and Kashmiri civilians. Within minutes, 26 people lay dead, over 40 wounded. No group immediately claimed responsibility, but India's intelligence services quickly pieced together familiar fingerprints. Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Taiba. For India, this was more than just another terror attack. Security was supposed to be tight, intelligence on high alert, but somehow they slipped through. Pakistan's response: predictable denial, blame shifting. Yet behind closed doors, even Pakistani officials knew this time it was different, especially as rumors began to circulate. Whispers about how the bullets fired in Pahalgam might have been paid for indirectly by Washington, D.C. What seemed like a theory started gaining credibility. Multiple Indian and international media outlets began probing the unconfirmed. Have US humanitarian and security aid agencies been misused? Specifically, funds from the United States Agency for International Development, or the USAID, had been siphoned into groups with direct or indirect ties to terror outfits like the Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Mr. Roman, are you aware that we are sending $40 million a week to the Taliban?
Yes, sir.
Can you name other instances of foreign aid going to terrorist organizations?
We have assisted Al-Shabaab in Somalia. There's been instances of the Khamsi network in Sudan, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Kata'iba Hezbollah, Hayat Tahrir al-Shams in Syria. Dozens of terror organizations have received indirect assistance from U.S. foreign aid.
The origin of the scandal: a 2021 grant of $110,000 from USAID to a Michigan-based Islamic charity called Helping Hand for Relief and Development, or HHRD. a group accused of financial ties to Lashkar-e-Taiba's charitable front, the Falah-e-Insaniyat Foundation, or the FIF. Why does that matter? Because FIF is no ordinary NGO. It was founded by Hafiz Saeed himself, the mastermind of the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks that killed 166 people, including 6 Americans. Both FIF and its parent organization, Jamaat-ud-Dawa or the JUD, are banned by the United States of America, India, and even Pakistan. Yet somehow, money flowed. Let that sink in. US taxpayer dollars under the guise of humanitarian aid allegedly found their way to a terrorist entity led by a man on both America's and India's most wanted lists. The pathway was shadowy, but not invisible. In October 2021, HHRD received funds through USAID's Ocean Freight Reimbursement Program. The charity had long-standing links with organizations in Pakistan's Punjab province, where FIF operates openly despite being banned.
He reviewed a study and then went and checked it. The study was done by the Middle East Forum. They found that USAID spent $164 million to support radical organizations around the world. We're not talking Cub Scout troops here. We're talking about radical organizations around the world. They gave $122 million of that to groups aligned with foreign terrorist organizations. Our taxpayer money. According to this report in Mr. Musk, the USAID has given millions of dollars to, quote, organizations in Gaza controlled by Hamas. Why aren't my colleagues talking about that?
Reports from watchdogs and think tanks, including the Hudson Institute and South Asia Terrorism Portal, had warned about HHRD's suspicious connections years earlier. But the money kept coming. In 2023, USAID awarded another $7,300 to HHRD. By then, internal audits had raised red flags. Congressional members, most vocally Representative Michael McCaul, demanded answers. But bureaucratic inertia and diplomatic sensitivities buried the findings. Now, after Pahalgam, the dots are being connected with deadly urgency. To understand how we got here, we must rewind to February 2025. During Donald Trump's unexpected second term, a controversial aid package was quietly approved. $397 million earmarked specifically for the maintenance and monitoring of Pakistan's fleet of US-supplied F-16 fighter jets. But not to forget, in days like today, Pakistani army solely relies on these very F-16 jets to counter India. Now, what's the official justification for the whereabouts of the money? Ensure these jets were used solely for counterterrorism, not aggression against India. But monitoring is a vague word. There are no accounts that can justify the spending of this massive amount of money. How do you ensure enforcement in a country with deep ties between its military and jihadist networks? There are no proper records of this money. Maintenance logs vanished. So the question looms: did Pakistan divert US-sanctioned support to prop up terror outfits? While Indian intelligence was piecing the puzzle together, another bombshell emerged. Secret meetings involving Pakistan's army chief, General Asim Munir, and a group of non-state actors, according to some reports. Satellite imagery and intercepted communications hinted at covert gatherings in Murree and Rawalpindi. Among the guests, high-ranking members of LET and, astonishingly, representatives from Hamas. They were reportedly hosted in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir just weeks before the Pahalgam strike. Analysts say these are not rogue actors. They're part of a deep state strategy, emboldened by foreign funds and domestic impunity. The evidence was circumstantial, but compelling enough for India. The Modi government, typically cautious with direct economic confrontation, dropped its gloves. First, it suspended all remaining trade with Pakistan, a trickle that had survived years of tensions but now evaporated. Next, the Indus Waters Treaty was put on abeyance, a shocking move that could cripple Pakistan's agriculture-dependent economy. Pakistani artists were banned and their Instagram accounts now have been blocked. New Delhi was loud and clear. Talks and terror can't go together. Water and terror can't flow together. And art and terror can't work together. Diplomats in Washington, London and West Asia scrambled to mediate, but India was clear. No more water until there's no more terror. So now the question arises, how did this happen? How did international law, security and financial transparency fail on such a large scale? The US government, despite having strong evidence of terrorist activities funded by Pakistani charities, failed to stop the flow of funds.
Who gets some of that money? Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan, terrorist training camps. That's what it's funding. If you think that the program under Operation Enduring Sentinel, entitled Women's Scholarship Endowment, which receives $60 million annually, or the Young Women Lead, which gets about $5 million annually, is going to women who, by the way, if you read the Inspector General's report, is telling you that the Taliban does not allow women to speak in public. Yet somehow you're believing, and American people are supposed to believe, that this money is going for the betterment of the women in Afghanistan. It is not. You are funding terrorism, and it's coming through USAID. And it's not just Afghanistan, because Pakistan's right next door. USAID spent $840 million in the last 20 years on Pakistan's education-related program. It includes $136 million to build 120 schools, of which there is zero evidence that any of them were built. Why would there be any evidence? The Inspector General can't get in to see them. But you know what? We doubled down and spent $20 million from USAID to create educational television programs for children unable to attend the physical school. Yeah, they can't attend it because it doesn't exist. You paid for it. Somebody else got the money. You are paying for terrorism. This has got to end. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
You may be surprised to know that in 2022, Pakistan was excluded from the grey list of the global financial watchdog, that is the FATF, also known as the Financial Action Task Force. This was done despite India lodging strong protests against it. Now Republican voices point fingers at Biden. Democrats deflect towards Trump's second term. But let's be clear, this isn't a partisan failure. This is a bipartisan betrayal. A systemic collapse spanning years, presidencies, and political ideologies. A failure so profound, it didn't just overlook terror, it enabled it. And while America debated, South Asia bled. India has faced these challenges head-on. From the 2001 Parliament attack to 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks, India has been on the front lines of this war against terror. And yet, despite the loss, despite the suffering, it seems the world hasn't done enough to hold Pakistan accountable. So where does this leave us? US taxpayer dollars, funds meant for humanitarian aid, have been channeled to organizations directly tied to terror. The US must now confront a painful truth, that despite its best intentions, it may have funded both sides of the war on terror. Pakistan's involvement in perpetuating violence is clear, and yet no one has been held truly accountable. The truth is uncomfortable, the reality is painful, but it's a reality that must be confronted. Accountability, transparency, and global pressure are essential if we are to end this deadly cycle of terrorism funded by Western aid, it seems. The question isn't just how did this happen? It's also what will we do now? America must answer how its dollars may have become bullets. Pakistan must face how its soil continues to harbor bloodshed. And the world must ask, when the smoke clears, will they act or just move on until the next attack? Because for India, there is no moving on. Not from 26/11, not from Pulwama, and definitely not from Pahalgam. The time for diplomacy is fading. In India, paying the price in blood will no longer whisper for peace. It will roar for justice. Thank you for watching Statecraft.